Welcome back to Build Your Legacy Insurance Edition podcast. What's going on, Travis?
Nothing much, Bill. How are you, man?
I'm good. Been nice. Weather's been good. Been outside.
Yeah, it's that time of year, getting a little sunburn action going on, all that fun stuff. So getting yelled at by my wife for not wearing sunscreen, stuff like that.
There you go. As long as you're sunscreening up the kids,
Right.
you're winning.
Yes, yeah, that's the important thing. Take care of them. I'll worry about myself later.
Yep. There we go.
So we just finished our annual meeting a few weeks ago. Had a great time. You know, I think one of the things that popped up during that time frame that we wanted to talk about was we talked a lot about dollars, stability. A lot of our members have been asking us, like, what do I pay myself as an owner?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, we get that question a bunch.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's, no matter where you are in your lifespan, it's actually something you should pay a lot of attention to, I feel like.
It is, and there's a transition as well, because we certainly help start agencies up.
Yeah.
And those owners have to look at what they pay themselves differently because they don't have that income coming in from day one.
Right.
So as they make that transition and the agency does start making money, now the question is, what do I pay myself?
Yeah. How do I reward myself, so to speak, right? For all the hard work they're putting in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have the same views on this. So I'll let you kind of take it.
One of the traps you can fall into is not paying yourself what your job responsibilities are. You want to look at what your role is in that agency. If you're a producer, pay yourself as a producer. If there's stuff left over at the end of the year, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But don't overpay yourself.
Yeah, so I would agree. So let's pick on that producer role. That's the point where I believe you should look at what is the market paying a producer.
Yes.
So if in your market you think it's 50% new, 30% renewal, or if it's 40% new, 15% renewal, whatever that number is, and we certainly can help guide you and talk with you about that. But I certainly think that's where you're on. Is what's the market paying?
What's the market paying?
What should you pay yourself?
Yeah, and I see in agencies that ultimately find themselves in financial peril, maybe it is they're overpaying themselves, and they have to then look inside the agency to look for ways to cut that so that they can continue their lifestyle. Whereas if you set your going rate at the market value, pay yourself market value, your agency is going to be much more sustainable and ultimately profitable long term and more valuable because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that standpoint. Is you do see sometimes people have great months and they may look at it and go, hey, let me just pay myself a little bit more this month. The problem is they don't have the foresight to see the next month is going to be awful.
Right.
And it may not make enough to pay the bills the right way. And so then it's like, man, you already took it and now you're trying to figure out how to put it back and come with an established agency the right way.
Yeah. And on a previous episode, we talked about stability, right? And this is a way to create stability within your organization with a set pay scale for yourself, and in some ways treating yourself as a regular employee of the organization.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, if there's things left over and you want to pay yourself a little bit more at that time, by all means do that. I'm a big proponent of reinvesting into the business. That's a way to continue growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would say, you win a big account. Don't take a little bit more because you've won an account that's real large, right? Stick to your tried and true methods there.
Yeah, and I think this goes, so let's transition off, because I do believe, and we've talked about this, that a lot of agency owners have to start out as producers.
Yes.
They have to do that. So let's get to where they've got $500,000 of revenue, $1 million of revenue. Maybe they don't want to produce as much anymore. Maybe they've figured out that now they've hired the right producers. They're paying those producers. Now they've become an agency manager,
Right.
of sorts. Maybe they're more of a placer for new business.
Right.
There could be those different roles. And at that point, again, it opens the door back up to what is the market paying?
What is the market value? And I think you said when we were talking about this previously, find yourself a good bookkeeper. Work with somebody that can give you some of that insight into the marketplace, to make sure you're managing it correctly and you've got the right scale for it.
Yeah, and we certainly can help as well.
Yes.
It's one of those that we certainly talk to a lot of people. We have employees ourselves doing different things, so we can talk. We can bounce ideas around. Doesn't mean you have to take our ideas. But it gives you some ideas of what's going on.
Yeah, and I mean where you're located, if you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, that's going to be different than Randolph County, right? So you want to make sure you're appropriate to your geographic area when you're setting these up for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that covers the topic well, unless there's something you'd like to add.
I think your point is just hit it. Make sure you make money. Like, yeah, we got to do it and you've got to make money. But I think your comment was just don't overpay yourself to put your agency in a jam later.
Exactly. If you will pay yourself for what you're doing, the going rate for it, get to the end of the year, then at that point, if you want to take more, let's do it at that time. Let's not try to do it along the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've got money in the bank account at that point. You can figure out what kind of owner distribution do you need? What kind of retained earnings do you need? You can kind of deal with that at the end of the year when you're figuring things out with your CPA.
Exactly. So
awesome. Good topic, man.
Good seeing you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. You can catch our Build Your Legacy Insurance Edition podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, or send us over a topic recommendation at podcast@siaofnc.com. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, visit us online at www.siaofnc.com. We hope you enjoyed our newest episode. See you next week.